aid for Palestinians. I was also in Gaza on the 14th and 15th of May, and we had an orthoplastic team that was working at Shifa Hospital at that time. In fact, one of the members of the team had been there, a senior surgeon, orthopedic surgeon from King's College Hospital, who had been there for 10 days, assessing the wounds in different hospitals and the treatment that they had received over the whole period since the 30th of March. So trying to get an overview of the number of injuries and also the kinds of care that were now required. That was before the 14th. The 14th was an extraordinary and shattering day. There was a real concern that if the shooting continued at the same level, the hospital system would absolutely collapse. Having said that, actually, the job that they did was quite extraordinary. I mean, that day it was reported that there were 1,359 gunshot wounds. So the system itself really did stand up until the afternoon, when the flooding of patients coming in made it very, very difficult to coordinate. But they had tried to ensure that there was a good system from the medical centres that were along the border, in the return camps, as they're called, and making sure that they were referred to the right hospitals that would be able to give them the most severe cases would be going to the right hospitals. That system did hold up. However, it's quite extraordinary looking at the number of injuries that have come through. We believe it's a reasonable assumption that there are at present 1,200 patients in Gaza that are awaiting orthoplastic treatment for the treatment of open fractures to their legs as a result of gunshot wounds. And typically those gunshot wounds have involved a very small entry point and a very large exit point. The bone is usually severely fragmented, and if it divides the main vessels and the lower parts of the leg loses blood supply, that means that there has to be urgent revascularization, otherwise amputation is inevitable. And that has to happen within 6 hours. On the 14th of May, by 10 o'clock in the evening, there were 70 patients at Shifa Hospital, this is just Shifa Hospital, who were still awaiting orthopedic surgery. And the following morning there were still 40 patients, which meant that they had been there for over 12 hours in severe pain, and actually the only kind of pain relief that they had was ibuprofen. I'd be very quick. I just wanted to say that these injuries will require 12 to 18 months of outpatient care. If they're untreated, it will go on to chronic osteomyelitis, deformity, pain, grossly reduced mobility, and most people will be unable to work or support themselves. So while the treatment is extremely expensive, it's much cheaper than the alternative, which is a whole generation of young men and women who would be unable to work.
Thank you very much indeed.